Oh, he said what he said. Hey, it's Chris. Second part of this series, my best of quarter one. Because it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to look back and say, okay, where are things at after quarter two? Where are things at after quarter three? Where are things at after the whole freaking year? But sometimes it's hard, and sometimes even when you get to the end, some of these projects that really shone earlier in the year get overlooked or just don't get the attention they deserve, which is a whole topic of another review video that I'll be doing shortly. Games that I think are freaking sweet, but I haven't had time to cover, that I think you should know about, that I think I need to talk about, but I haven't been able to do so. And so that's the premise of this, but with crowdfunding, right? He's amped up. Let's go. Now, I'm going to have some strong opinions of this one, and these aren't going to be in any particular order, but I'm going to talk you through why I'm happy with some of them, why I'm not happy with other ones, and where it kind of goes from there. But they're the notables, if you will. Potables? Anyway, Celebrity Jeopardy? Go look it up. Let's go. So first up, we have to go with CMON and Dungeons of Shadowreach and the 17 projects that CMON has still at the time of me filming this unfulfilled and in some sort of production limbo between getting money and getting into your little grubby freaking hands. And this is, at this point, the highest funding of the year, I believe. So I give a lot of kudos. And it didn't raise as much as the first one. Is that the Gamefound situation? Gonna get myself in trouble again. But that's also the question I have is, if you're gonna see the third time around with this one, guess what you're gonna see for a fourth time 2 years from now? I'm not gonna say it. But the situation being, I give them a lot of kudos, but I'm not sure, as someone who wasn't in Massive Darkness 2 in the first place, whether or not this was a better jumping in point or not in that regard. So that is the big question. They raised almost $1 million less than the previous Massive Darkness 2 campaign, which, again, in a bubble, that is a lot. Comparatively for CMON, comparatively for the rest of crowdfunding, it's still really freaking good. But with their other financial considerations, I don't really think they're in trouble. I don't, folks. I don't. But I think there's enough smoke to, unless they start getting some of these other things hitting, right? And that goes back to the first point, why I think you're going to see more of this in that regard. Why I think you're going to see more United. Why you're not going to see Zombicide go away. Why they probably signed this deal with Gamefound in the first place. Because that is what's bringing in the money. Dead Keep, God of War, you know, especially when you're licensing a few of these things that aren't yours typically. Like, I wonder what the break-even point for God of War, given the IP constraints and cost, actually was. That would be something I would be super interested in. I would be super interested to know what the exact deal between Gamefound and CMON was in that regard. I just would like to know, because I think it's an interesting talking point. So if you've got information in that regard, share it. I'd be loving to know this. As a side note right here, tangent 1A to 1B, you know what? I sometimes go after Gamefound a little bit hard, but you know, if you're gonna be putting out yourself as the AEW to WWE in a wrestling sense, I think it's great to have a successful alternative. And I think that they have actually done some really good things with the new features on Gamefound, being able to sort a little bit more, because that's Kickstarter's big MO, is they've just been kind of riding on their coattails for a while, which has allowed Gamefound to even get to the point where they're at. You know, you treat in our society, I'm not saying this is right, but you treat the money better than the less money. And so Kickstarter hasn't really done as much of that with tabletop games, which I feel like is a huge proportion, much higher proportion than what it is comparatively outside in the general hobby scene, right? Like the proportion of board games to video games in real life, but the proportion of board games to everything else on Kickstarter is such a higher percentage, but you're not treating it like that. And so you're not treating your cash cow, your golden goose, that well, so it's no shock that people went over to Gamefound. And I don't really blame publishers, you know, from that side of things. And as a consumer, spoilers, it doesn't really make a difference as a backer. I'm not supposed to say that. That's the secret, right? But I think you're going to see more. I think you're going to see more of this. I think you're going to see more of all of these popular things, right? until they milk it to death, until Zombicide doesn't get $1 million, until Nemesis doesn't get $1 million. Anything like that is going to come again. Or they're going to do what everyone else is doing right now. Zombicide Duel! Nemesis Duel! Whatever you want from that aspect. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to go with another one that I am just been super impressed by. And the biggest thing I can say for Onward, right? Speaking of that, one of their games, Sky Tier will be in the other video I was mentioning at the beginning of this video. But Onward, I love this MOBA style. But you know what I love more? You know what I really love? You know what really grinds my gears on crowdfunding? When a game is announced, and maybe we'll go with retail too, because we just saw it with Vantage from Stonemaier. We see it with one or two of the Awakened Realms projects where they're like, hey guys, it's 2024 with Vantage. This game's going to be out in 2026 or whatever it was, right? And same thing with the Awakened Realms Feast earlier this year. They said, hey guys, here's our campaigns. And this campaign isn't even launching for a year. It's not even launching for a mother freaking year? Why the hell are you telling me about it now? And consequently, the opposite with Onward, that they said, guys, fund us, and we're going to hit the print button, essentially. We're going to hit the print button, we're going to ship it to you, and we're going to have it to you in about 8 months. And that is the way I would love to see more projects. Now, I know, again, don't hit me up in the comment section about this. I know that not all companies can do that, right? I know that that's not viable, especially for the small companies raising, you know, in the tens of thousands or even the low hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like, I know, but I'm saying when people do it, folks, you have to support and reward that, or guess what? It's not going to happen again. Be the change you want to see. I back mother freaking Stan-E level game pledges, right? Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, all of those things. Uprising Curse of the Last Emperor. Guess what my Oathsworn copy is? It's a freaking Stan-E version. Be the change you want to see. Otherwise, shut up and get out of the comment section, right? So I give them kudos. And this is my type of game as well. I'm kind of going halvesies on the miniatures with this one though, because they do look kind of cool, but there's no pledge manager either. Because they're going print, boom, shakalaka. I love the two-player MOBA style-esque. It's Guards of Atlantis 2 for me meets Battle for Britannia, more accessible in a slightly different vibe. I love it. Thank you, Sky Tier. That's why it's on the list. Bullet Cubed. I am not, and I said this during the campaign, I am not a fan of big boxes. I am still not a fan of big box, as he sits here with the big box of Kabuto Sumo literally right next to him. There are exceptions to the rules, though. I mean, again, right? That's kind of what this video was about in some ways, too. Where I own everything for Bullet. I will own everything for Bullet. I own all the promos. I own everything. I own the previous promo that is in alt art now based on the previous campaign prior to this one with Paw and Palette. Like, I am a connoisseur, a lover of them. I'm a snob. Anyway, no, I try not to be the last one too much, but I'm really okay with this. And I just really hope, I just really hope. Give me something that is functional. The biggest problem with any box, whether it's technically a big box or not, I'm looking at you, Castles of Burgundy. I'm looking at the one right here I just put in the shelf the other night behind Cthulhu Death May Die. I packed up, I had to re-pack up my unmatched Tales to Amaze because the insert is nice. The insert doesn't work vertically. And that pisses me off. And it kind of does. No, stuff falls out if there's any slide this way, exactly. And I need something to be both. And if you can't deliver that, if you can't fit it in a calyx, that's where I have a problem. Because nowadays, they are, as Cole Worley said, they're just cardboard-laden coffins where it doesn't really help you actually do the thing it should do. I don't need it organized. I need it in a way that allows me to actually utilize it faster than tipping it out, dumping my baggies everywhere, and half using the baggies to keep things in the first place. If you can't beat that in a better way, not necessarily exactly time-wise, but just in general, I don't want it. I don't. And so that's kind of why this is kind of cool, because it's a little magnetic door and the things slide out and you can actually... Anyway, But that's why Bullet, I love Bullet, the real-time shoot 'em up aspect of things, the asymmetry all over the place. Is it balanced? I don't freaking care. As in the words of Richard Garfield, nothing is perfectly balanced, so that should not be your consideration, but it's one of the best games ever made. Oh, he said what he said, right? Deal with it. I told you I'm hyped up. And you know what? Let's go to surprises here. Let's go middle of the video surprises. Pond from Brother Ming over on BackerKit. 100 grand? Asymmetric frogs? I'm not a big fan of the artwork. The artwork is not my favorite. I don't freaking care. Gameplay looks good. It's an easier, more accessible, deck building route situation. You know what? Sometimes you just got to go with what you love. And this is one of those things. I have a type, in case it's not clear with some of these and some of these other ones later on the list. And I'm okay with that. Because the most important thing with any of these, the lesson for this one is buy what you love. Don't buy and get what other people are hyping. Don't buy and get what all the previews are telling you to do. Don't buy and hype and go after it. Grass is greener because, Molly House has all of the rave reviews nowadays, or whatever the latest hotness is. It'll be something, it's Molly House this week. That's why I was talking about it. But it'll be something else next week. It'll be something else by the time you're watching this video. And you're going to be tempted by other people's glowing endorsements, other people's fun to get it. But sometimes you got to stay true to yourself. You got to find someone whose tastes line up with yours in this sense, if you're watching these sort of things, so that you can, actually do it, which is why the next two were amazing surprises to me. They are not anywhere near the top funders, but kudos where kudos is due. I talked about both of these actually, I believe in the same video even. And I really love it. I got one sitting right down here still next to me, Companion Quest. This is one of the best family weight, sort of puzzle-esque, chaos, dice-driven placement games that I've played in a long time. Fan-freaking-tastic. I am so impressed by what Ghostfire did with this one. It shouldn't be as fun as it is. It's just a nice puzzle that'll make you, as a gamer, it's probably a little easier than you may like. At the same time, it's not. But it will also provide enough of a challenge that your kids can go, oh yeah. But it's not also like Ghost Stories level impossible. So it's just absolutely smash surprise of quarter one. It's a game that, I wouldn't be talking about that probably at the end of the year. I probably won't be talking about it as one of the best of, 2025. But you give kudos again where kudos is due for putting out something solid and getting money, because this is the stuff that crowdfunding is for. Secondly, Fame and Fable. Again, I reached out to the creator, and I owe him a little bit of mea culpa because it took me too long to get out the video, to be frank with you. And he was very patient, and so I really appreciate that. But I saw the concept on Board Game Geek, and it's one of those where every once in a while, right, you see one of those games on Board Game Geek. That was this for me. I actually saw the news roundup that what's-his-face, who's the main whatever dude over on Board Game Geek that I'm completely blanking about at the time of me filming this, talked about it in a news roundup from Ketchup Games before Pandasaurus imported. And I stalked Ketchup Games' website over in Europe until it was released. I got one of the, 100 English copies of Dr. Fu, not Dr. Foe, and I own everything for it. And I took a huge risk on it because there wasn't even any gameplay, there weren't any reviews, there weren't even a rule book out. And I just said, the time traveler cube dropping concept sounds amazing. And sometimes you see those and you go, wow. And this was Fame and Fable for me. And I was really trepidatious, right? Because sometimes you have the opposite. You build it up in your head and then you play it and you go, oh, son of a biscuit. Why is this not clicking? Why don't I like this? Why is this not as good as I wanted it to be in my imagination? And yet this one did. I was really impressed by the combo-driven system and the card play that goes along with this. The build your deck, the fighting enemies, and how you take them out with the weaknesses and the strengths dynamic. And again, it overachieved for me. It got a couple $100,000, which again, I looked at this at both of these and I said, if these both get like 50,000, I think that would be amazing. The fact that, Fame and Fable did as good as it did, though, is just, again, why we do crowdfunding. This stuff comes out of nowhere, and I love it. That is the love of this hobby as a whole, right there. Then we're going to a little bit more tried and true standards here. Everdell Silverfrost, and Tabletop Tycoon was nice enough to send me one of their prototypes. I think they only had like 2 or 3 prototypes total. And so I got to cover this, and I am not, full disclaimer, I kind of said it in the video, I kind of, skirted the edges with it, right? Like, I am not the biggest fan of Everdell. I think it's nice. I think it's fine. I don't want to have to need 2 expansions to make me really love it. Farshore is out there. Now Silverfrost is out there. Silverfrost is basically like having an expansion or 2 thrown in already compared to Everdell. So having played that and having played the original and gotten rid of as much of the original as I could, right now I still have Belfair expansion. Nobody's wanted to buy that. But I go, why would I ever want a different base game? Why would I ever want expansions to need to incorporate the same amount of elements but not being over complex in the first place? Like it strikes that very nice balance. It's different than Farshore. You can get Farshore separately, but I'm really impressed with what they did with this core box as a whole to keep it straddling those lines without blurring too much either way. So that was really impressive. And again, my type, I have a YOMI 2 type, right? The Paper, Scissors, Rock, Lizard, Spock situation, one of my pet peeves is the overly complicated card play only driven games that come out, right? That have a 25-page rulebook and you're going, why on earth is this game this complicated for this simple of a concept? And I was a little worried from Serlin. But at the same time, I was going, okay, people are playing this on Steam. And so if they can play it on Steam in that way, I can. And so I liked the crystal aspects to give some more asymmetry. I like some of the characters. The problem is I only had like a half a dozen characters or so, maybe 10. I can't remember, something in that range. And it is a prototype, so it's not finished. But it's the sort of thing with Summoner Wars where I don't need all of it. I don't need all of it. And yet I'm going to own it all because I love the dynamics of the mechanics, and they've simplified it a little bit compared to Yomi 2nd edition. Not in a sense like they dumbed it down, right? I'm not saying that. But they got rid of some of the mechanics that just make it overly, my head is, how am I, for new people especially. Not for like the hardcore, I play this, 6 times a week sort of situations, but just for the casual. And that's where some of the, contemporaries even like Exceed, I feel like, and Summoner Wars are easier to table for repeated play over a longer period of time with larger gaps that Yomi 2nd edition for me wasn't able to do as much. And so now having this, I feel like I'm more confident in my ability to do so going forward in that sense. Then again, I'm going to call this out because I was really impressed by not just one, but all 3 of the games in this campaign all play with the Twinkle Twinkle, Merchants of Andromeda, and Waddle. Twinkle Twinkle, I'm not a huge fan of the acrylics, but the dynamics there, the Merchants of Andromeda sort of auction bidding style that I really, on surface value, when I read the description prior to the campaign, I was kind of like, I'm not really, because they actually reached out to me and said, hey, we got one last copy of this. Can you, and I was like, And then the campaign launched. I saw the dynamics. I read the rulebook and I was like, oh man, that actually looks better than I thought. And then, the one I was actually thinking I was going to like the most of Waddle Waddle with penguins, sort of, the ice-based penguin game in the first place where you remove the tiles. I was really looking forward to this one the most, and it actually ended up being the least interesting, which is crazy. You go into it thinking one thing and you go out thinking the other, which is the lovely thing of 3,500 people backing this for over $250,000 for, again, 3 games you had never heard of beginning of 2025. So that's why it had to be included. And then last up here, for both positives and negatives, Star Trek Ascendancy. Final Frontier, the penultimate Final Frontier, the final frontier, who no one knows, because now we're seeing Mage Knight come back after years and years with another expansion after the Ultimate Edition came out, right? But Star Trek Ascendancy. Positive because holy freaking metric ton, like right up there with Dungeons of Shadowreach in terms of funding, which is impressive. Big kudos in that regard. I didn't think it was going to be anywhere near that. However, I also hate the fact that they were kind of like, well, the playable version, is whatever amount of money. The 3 expansions, if you are a completionist like I was earlier with Bullet, are going to cost you, like $150 or something like that to get 3 expansions. Yeah, it was like 140 something, wasn't it? And then that's my biggest issue is, they also made those exclusive. So, I mean, I would be a little pissed as a Bullet completionist if Bullet did that from level 99, if level 99 said that that was going to be the case. And I have to look at this equally and go, if I'm going to be pissed about the game I love, I'm going to be equally pissed about the game I don't love, right? Because I don't want you Ascendancy lovers at this point to feel like that is something that you needed to do because you can't get it later. And you're not going to play them anytime soon, right? Like, I know that I am going to end up with all the Bullet, right? But I don't feel the obligation to get all of it right now necessarily because I haven't played the stuff that I have. And so I hate that type of FOMO in addition. It's the same thing, right? It's just a different label. You know, most of the time we see it with the stretch goals. This is the issue. And so I guess if maybe you're going to have it available web shop wise, I'm okay with that. Or you know what? At the same time, we'll go devil's advocate here. If you're just not going to offer it in the future whatsoever, I am okay with that too. Like a townsfolk tussle situation where you go, we just can't. So I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. And so I can see it from both sides of the argument. But again, I am really impressed by the amount of money and the effort into the campaign regardless. And I think the funding goal, just even from that aspect, probably much more so, you know, we'll give kudos again, much more so than the FOMO being driven by that. The effort was put in there. It was, you know, well done in that regard. And I give, you know, credit again where credit's due. So those are my 10 campaigns so far, Q1. Comments, questions, concerns, or whatever else you want down below. Let me know. What did I miss? What should have been on there? I mean, there's plenty of other stuff that we could have talked about. But these were the ones, again, like, this is my list. Not totally, but a little bit of my flavoring to go along with it as well. So maybe a few of these on your radar for the first time. But if they are on your radar for the first time, that means you're probably not subscribed to me and you're not watching my weekly crowdfunding roundup. So if you would have been watching those, you would have seen all of these as well. Stay classy. Peace out.